In a quiet farming town in Nebraska, 62-year-old Thomas Granger lived a simple life, tending to the land that had been passed down through 5 generations of his family. Recognized for his calloused hands and unshakable pride, Thomas wasn't one to get involved in politics. But when an envelope arrived bearing the presidential seal, even he raised an eyebrow. President Donald Trump was scheduled to visit farming communities devastated by drought and economic strain from trade policies. Thomas, often referred to as the soul of Harvest Valley, was personally invited to meet the president during this visit. The town buzzed with anticipation. Local reporters arrived. American flags lined the dusty roads, and neighbors swept their barns like they were preparing for a visit from royalty. But Thomas stayed grounded. "I'll hear what he has to say," he remarked. His daughter Abby, 28, a single mother and schoolteacher, urged him, "Dad, this could really change things, for the farm and for all of us." Thomas simply replied, "Maybe. But sometimes it's not about what's being promised, it's about what's truly needed." When the big day came, helicopters thundered overhead. Security agents covered the fields. A podium was placed in front of Thomas's old red barn, the spot where the president would speak. As the motorcade arrived, Thomas adjusted his worn hat, unaware that what was about to happen would not only surprise the president, but deeply move the entire nation. President Trump stepped out to applause. Surrounded by aides, Secret Service, agents, and a flurry of media, he confidently approached Thomas with his hand extended. The crowd fell silent. Thomas looked at the offered hand, not just from a political leader, but from a man symbolizing both opportunity and controversy. But instead of accepting it, Thomas stepped back. A wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked furiously. Trump's smile faltered. "You're not going to shake my hand?" the president asked. Thomas remained steady. "Mr. President, I don't have anything personal against you. But before I shake your hand, I need to show you something." Trump looked intrigued. "Go on." Thomas gestured to the weathered barn behind them. "Before I give you my handshake, I want you to meet someone. Not a politician. Not someone with billions. Just a person who helped hold this country together while no one was watching." With a curious nod from Trump, Thomas led him away from the cameras and toward the barn. Inside, sitting quietly in a wooden chair, was Edith Granger, Thomas's 90-year-old mother. A widow of a World War II veteran and a lifelong farmer's wife, she rose slowly, her frail frame radiating quiet strength. "This woman," Thomas began, "worked these fields when my father went to war. She raised 5 children with nothing but dirt, prayer, and grit. She never once asked for help. But now, she needs it." Trump looked into Edith's eyes. She didn't smile, but held a quiet dignity that didn't need words. The crowd leaned closer. The handshake was long forgotten. "What exactly are you asking me, Mr. Granger?" the president asked, his voice softer than before. Thomas cleared his throat. He looked at the cameras, then back at the president. His voice was steady, though full of emotion. "I'm not here to ask for subsidies or tax breaks or photo ops," he said. "I just want you to listen. Really listen." "To what?" "Rural America has been screaming into the wind for years. Listen to the farmers who've sold their last cow. To the teachers driving Ubers at night. To the veterans who gave everything to this country but are left to die broke and forgotten." The crowd was silent now, truly listening. "I want you to sit at our table, no suits, no cameras, and hear what life really looks like here. Because if you want my handshake, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you your ears." Trump didn't respond right away. He turned to his aides, then back to Thomas. "So your real request is just a conversation?" Thomas nodded. "An honest one." Trump looked at Edith again, who spoke softly. "It's not about sides, son. It's about seeing people." With a faint smile, Trump replied, Well, I didn't expect this. Then came the words that surprised everyone. Let's talk. Right now. The handshake still didn't come. Inside the old farmhouse, cameras were left outside. Trump sat at a worn wooden table with Thomas, Abby, and Edith. A pot of coffee steamed. In the center, surrounded by mismatched mugs. The silence in the room felt genuine, the kind that fills spaces when real people gather with real problems. Thomas spoke first. 3 farms in this valley closed just this year. Not because we're lazy, but because the system's broken. The loans are too high, the profits too low, and the help never comes in time. Abby added, My school lost most of its funding. I teach 3 different grades in the same room. Some of my kids come to school hungry, and that's not something you fix with tweets. Trump leaned forward. No script, no notes, just listening. Then Edith spoke. I've been voting since Truman, but I've stopped believing that Washington remembers people like us. If you say you love America, then love all of her, even the worn-down parts. Trump nodded. You think I don't care? Thomas looked him in the eye. I think you've never been this close to care. For a moment, Trump was no longer a president, just a man at a kitchen table, surrounded by stories, by hardship, and by truth. Finally, he said, All right then, let's make something happen, but I want this to go beyond this kitchen. These voices belong in Washington. Thomas narrowed his eyes. Then I'll hold you to that. Trump extended his hand again. Thomas still didn't take it. Not yet, he said with a half-smile. The next morning, the story made national headlines, but not because of a handshake. It was because the president had actually sat down with a farmer's family and truly listened. Reporters buzzed with the unexpected turn. But Thomas didn't care about headlines. He cared about results. That same evening, White House staff returned to the Granger farm. The president wants to host a rural town hall right here in Harvest Valley, an aide announced. He wants farmers, teachers, business owners, everyone to come and speak freely. He'll be there to answer. Thomas was stunned. You're serious? We are. He says this story isn't over. Within days, a makeshift stage was built in the local school gym. Invitations went out. Families traveled from 4 neighboring states. Some were skeptical, others hopeful. You think he'll really show? Abby asked. Thomas, brushing dust off his boots, nodded. He asked to listen. Let's make sure he hears everything. The gym was packed. Farmers, store owners, nurses, and teens filled the seats. Cameras lined the back. But tonight wasn't about politics. It was about people. President Trump walked in without music, without applause. He nodded to Thomas, then took a seat at a round table of folding chairs. This isn't a rally, he said. It's a conversation. Who wants to begin? A shaky hand rose. Angela Rivera, a widow and mother of 4, stood up. My husband died of cancer last year. We couldn't afford treatment. Now I'm working 3 jobs just to pay for electricity. No one helped. Not the hospital, not the government. The room stilled. Then a teen named Mason stood. I want to be a farmer like my dad. But he says there's no future in it. He's thinking of selling the land. What am I supposed to do? The stories poured in. Raw, emotional, unrehearsed. Trump listened. He asked questions. He took notes. So did his staff. By the end of the evening, something rare had emerged. Trust. And still, Thomas hadn't offered his handshake. Outside, not everyone was impressed. Protesters gathered, holding signs. One read, "Too little, too late." Another, "Words won't feed us." Thomas noticed a young woman with fiery eyes holding a handmade sign. My grandpa lost his farm. I lost my future. He walked up to her. That's an honest sign, he said. You're the farmer who wouldn't shake his hand, she replied. He nodded. And I still haven't. Why? Because people have gotten too comfortable with easy symbols. A handshake is cheap. Real change has a cost. I'm Lily, she said. My grandpa's name was George. He always told me, the soil remembers everything. Thomas smiled. Your grandpa was right. In that moment, Lily didn't feel like a protester. She felt seen. Back at the farmhouse, Edith sat by the fire, writing a letter by hand. Dear Mr. President, it began. I'm 90 years old. I've lived through war, famine, and dust bowls. I've seen leaders rise and fall, but I've never seen Americans stop listening to one another like this. She didn't write to scold. She wrote to remind, my generation gave you liberty, not division. We planted crops with our hands and stitched the flags when they tore. If you want to rebuild this country, start with the soil, where real things grow. The next morning, she handed the letter to Thomas. Give this to him. You think he'll read it? He asked. He sat at our table, she said. I think he already started listening. A week later, Thomas got a call directly from the White House. We'd like to invite you to Washington, Mr. Granger. The president wants to hear more. And he's read Edith's letter. Thomas hesitated. I don't do suits or speeches. You don't have to. Just bring your voice. With his daughter's encouragement and his mother's blessing, Thomas boarded a plane for the first time in his life. From dusty fields to marble halls, he carried with him one thing: truth. And still, no handshake. Before leaving, he filled a small glass jar with soil from his farm and packed it in his bag. At the Capitol, aides were confused when he pulled it out. This, he said, is what it's all about. You sit in your offices and debate farm bills, but this is what feeds America. Not graphs, not sound bites. Later that day, Thomas handed the jar to Trump during a private meeting. The president held it. Quiet. You want my handshake? Thomas said. Then don't ever let this stop mattering. Trump nodded. No lobbyist ever gave me dirt before, he said softly. The next morning, Trump called a surprise press conference. With Thomas standing at his side, he announced the launch of the Heartland Voices Council, a bipartisan group of rural citizens advising the White House on farming, healthcare, and education. This isn't a stunt, Trump declared. It's a promise. And still, reporters asked, had Thomas finally shaken his hand?